You see a dog across the street. You don't know this dog. You have never met this dog. You have no prior relationship with this dog, no shared history, no mutual friends. And yet, somewhere deep in your body, a primal force awakens. Your hand rises. Your fingers curl. Your brain sends one single command. Touch the dog. And before you've even processed what's happening, you're crouched on the pavement making a sound you would never make in a professional setting, whispering, "Hi, baby," to a stranger's golden retriever like it's the most natural thing in the world. And the wild part, it is. Because this isn't just you. This isn't just a dog person thing, or a cat person thing, or a I grew up on a farm thing. This is a cross-cultural, deeply neurological, almost embarrassingly universal human behavior. We pet dogs. We pet cats. We pet bunnies, horses, capybaras, the occasional very confused lizard. We reach out to touch fluffy coats, soft ears, warm fur. We see a small creature and our hands just go. Nobody asks them to. They just go, and nobody has ever really sat down and properly explained why. Until now. Let's start with the obvious question. Is it just that animals are cute? Because that feels like the simple answer, right? You see something cute, you want to touch it. Case closed, everybody go home. But here's where it gets interesting. The cute instinct is way more complicated than it looks on the surface. When you see a creature with big round eyes, a small nose, chubby cheeks, and a large forehead relative to the rest of its face, your brain doesn't just produce a vague, pleasant feeling. Your brain enters a very specific neurological state that researchers have been studying seriously for decades. The original theory came from an Austrian ethologist named Konrad Lorenz back in 1943. He called it Kindchenschema, which is German for baby schema. His idea was that certain physical features trigger caregiving instincts in adult humans. Round face, big eyes, small chin, soft features, wobbly, uncoordinated movements. All of these things evolved in human infants specifically to hijack adult brains and make those adults want to protect and nurture the infant. Evolution is not subtle. It basically built a visual exploit directly into your neurological operating system and called it a baby. And Lorenz's observation, which was genuinely ahead of its time, was that these same features, when found in other species, trigger the exact same response. Your brain does not care that the thing in front of you is not your offspring. It does not perform a species check. It sees big round eyes and a small face, and it fires the caregiving circuitry. And suddenly you are experiencing a protective maternal or paternal instinct toward an animal you met 11 seconds ago in a parking lot. What's remarkable is that Lorenz proposed all of this in the 1940s with basically no brain imaging technology. He was just watching people react to things and taking notes. And then decades later, when we actually put people inside fMRI machines and showed them photographs of cute baby animals, he turned out to be essentially correct. The brain lights up in specific identifiable regions. The orbitofrontal cortex, areas linked to reward processing, structures associated with emotional salience and motivation. Looking at a cute animal is not a passive experience. It is a neurological event. Your brain is actively, measurably doing something. It is responding to what it sees the way it responds to things that genuinely matter. Things that are emotionally significant, things worth paying attention to, things worth caring about. And crucially, all of this is happening before you've even touched anything, because touching is a completely different layer on top of all of this. And this is where things get really good. Here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. The human sense of touch is absurdly sophisticated. We tend to think of touch as one sense, but it's actually a collection of different sensory systems running simultaneously. Your skin is covered in many different types of mechanoreceptors, specialized sensory cells that respond to different kinds of physical contact. Some respond to pressure, some to vibration, some to texture changes, some to temperature shifts. And there is one specific type discovered and studied in more depth relatively recently in the context of emotional and social touch called C-tactile afferents. These are nerve fibers that are specifically almost perfectly tuned to a particular kind of gentle, stroking touch. Not firm pressure, not sharp pain, not fast movement. Slow, gentle, soft stroking at a speed of approximately 1 to 10 centimeters per second. And when these fibers are activated, they send signals not just to the somatosensory cortex, the part of your brain that processes where and how you're being touched, but to areas associated with emotion, social bonding, and reward. These fibers essentially exist for the purpose of making gentle touch feel emotionally meaningful. Not just physically registered, but meaningful. And here's the part that connects everything. Running your hand slowly over soft fur activates C-tactile afferents almost perfectly. The texture, The warmth, the gentle resistance, the consistent pressure. It is as if fur was designed to interface with this specific sensory system. Pet a dog, and you are literally triggering a neurological pathway that evolved for social bonding and is now firing because of a Labrador. This is not a metaphor. This is chemistry, specifically oxytocin. Oxytocin, sometimes called the love hormone, though neuroscientists are genuinely a little tired of that reductive label because it does considerably more work than that. Oxytocin is released during positive physical touch. It's released when you hug someone you care about, when you hold a baby, when you engage in physical affection of basically any kind. And multiple well-designed studies have shown that just a few minutes of interacting with a dog, petting it, making eye contact, just being physically close, significantly elevates oxytocin levels in humans. We're talking measurable spikes in blood concentration of a bonding hormone from a few minutes of dog contact. And here's the part that feels almost unfair in how wholesome it is. The oxytocin spikes in the dog too, simultaneously. You are locking eyes with a dog, petting it, and you are both, you and the dog, experiencing the same neurochemical response that bonds parents to children, that bonds partners to each other, that underlies some of the deepest social connections human beings form. You walked up to a stranger's dog on the street and you accidentally fell a little bit in love with it. And so did the dog. And that is not sentimentality. That is biology working exactly as it's supposed to. But let's take a step back because there's another angle here that most people never consider. Why soft things specifically? Why is fur the thing that does this to us and not, say, gravel? Why do we not feel an irresistible urge to pet a brick wall? Why does texture matter so much? Part of the answer lies in tactile memory and early association. Humans, as infants, spend an enormous portion of their early existence in close contact with warm, soft things. Skin, fabric, blankets, other bodies. The association between softness and safety is established extremely early in development, before language, before conscious memory. It gets coded into your nervous system as a baseline. Soft things equal safety. Soft things equal closeness. Soft things equal comfort. And this association persists throughout your entire life in ways that your conscious mind rarely notices. There's also the temperature element, which is underrated. Fur is warm. And warm things communicate at a very deep neurological level that something is alive. When you place your hand on something warm and slightly yielding, there is an almost immediate reduction in measurable physiological stress markers, heart rate slows slightly, skin conductance drops, cortisol levels begin to decrease. Your autonomic nervous system is recognizing the warmth as the presence of another living body, and it is responding by downregulating your threat response. You are physiologically relaxing. Not because you decided to relax, because your body recognized warmth and went, okay, something alive is here. We're safe. And then, and this one is important, there's the sound. Because this is not just about touching. There's what you hear while you're doing it. Cat purring has been studied extensively in biology and increasingly in therapeutic contexts, partly because the more you look at it, the stranger and more interesting it gets. The sound is produced by the rapid movement of the laryngeal muscles. The cat's larynx vibrates dozens of times per second as the cat breathes both in and out, producing that continuous rumbling sound. The frequency of a typical domestic cat purr falls between 25 and 150 hertz, with the most common range sitting between 25 and 50 hertz. And here's where it gets genuinely strange. Frequencies in that specific range have been documented in clinical contexts to promote healing in bone tissue, to reduce inflammation, and to accelerate recovery in soft tissue injuries. There are physical therapy protocols being developed that use mechanical vibration at these exact frequencies to help patients heal faster from fractures and muscle damage. So when a cat is purring on your chest, you are not just hearing a sound. You are being gently vibrated at a frequency that may actively promote biological healing in your body. Cats walk around being accidentally therapeutic. They are sitting on your laptop and ignoring you and judging the structural integrity of your bookshelves while their body is passively emitting frequencies that might be good for your bones. They are doing literally nothing for their own reasons and accidentally providing physical therapy. And we still find them irresistible. We should. They are remarkable. Now let's address the compulsive part of all this, because I think this is genuinely the most interesting aspect. It's not just that petting animals feels good. Lots of things feel good and we manage to restrain ourselves around them in public. The weird thing about animals is that the urge feels almost impossible to override. You know intellectually that you should ask before petting the dog. You know the cat at your friend's apartment has given you 2 very clear warnings already. You do it anyway. What exactly is happening there? Part of it is approach motivation. When your brain identifies something as potentially rewarding and cute, soft, warm animals are firing essentially every reward signal your brain is equipped to generate, it creates a motivational pull toward that thing that precedes conscious decision-making. You're not thinking, I want to pet that dog. The motivational circuitry has already moved your hand. The conscious decision-making layer is catching up to something your body already started doing. The same basic reward approach circuitry that moves you toward food when you're hungry or toward someone you find attractive is generating the impulse to close the distance and initiate contact with the animal. You are, in the most literal sense, drawn to it. Then there's something researchers have started calling cute aggression, which sounds alarming and is actually fascinating. It's the experience of seeing something so overwhelmingly, almost unreasonably cute that you feel a strange, intense, almost aggressive urge in response, wanting to squeeze it, saying things like, I could eat you up, making little mock threatening gestures toward adorable things you obviously have zero intention of actually harming. If you've ever looked at a puppy and felt the inexplicable urge to aggressively scrunch its face, this is you experiencing cute aggression. Researchers at Yale studied this phenomenon seriously and found that it is not random. It appears to be a regulatory response generated by the brain. When something produces an overwhelming level of positive emotion, more than the system is easily handling, the brain generates a countervailing negative impulse as a homeostatic mechanism, a way of balancing out. The sudden I want to squeeze this creature into another dimension instinct is your nervous system literally trying to cope with the volume of positive response it's receiving. Your brain is overwhelmed by how cute something is, and it is not handling it gracefully, which means the slightly unhinged things you want to do to kittens are a sign that your brain is working correctly. You're welcome. Now here is a question that is worth sitting with. Is any of this unique to humans? Are we the only species that experiences this pull toward other species? The answer, interestingly, is kind of no. There are documented observations of primates in wild settings approaching animals of other species and interacting with them in ways that have no obvious survival function. Carefully handling small animals, engaging in what appears to be play, exhibiting what researchers describe with appropriate scientific caution as apparent curiosity and gentleness. Capuchin monkeys have been filmed doing this. Bonobos have been observed in contexts that look remarkably like cross-species socializing. Great apes in captivity frequently develop tactile, affectionate relationships with other animals they live near. Not just other primates, but dogs, cats, birds, rabbits. Coco, the gorilla who was taught American Sign Language over decades of research, had multiple pet cats over the course of her life. She requested them using signs. She named them herself. She handled them with consistent gentleness. When one of her cats died, she produced signs that her researchers interpreted as expressions of grief and sadness. A gorilla grieving for a small domestic cat because she had bonded with it, because touching it and being near it had meant something to her, because the relationship between a large primate and a small, warm, fuzzy creature was real, and it mattered. Touch is not a human invention. The drive for it is ancient, and it runs through more of the animal kingdom than we typically acknowledge. And if you want to understand just how ancient this really is, you have to look at coevolution, because the relationship between humans and dogs specifically is not a coincidence. It is not just that dogs happen to be around and we got used to them. It is the product of an estimated 15,000 to 40,000 years, depending on which research you're reading, of genuine mutual adaptation. Humans and dogs have been living together, working together, sleeping near each other, and touching each other for so long that we have, measurably, biologically changed each other. Dogs are uniquely sensitive to human social cues in ways that their closest wild relatives, wolves, simply are not, even wolves that were raised by humans from birth. Dogs follow human pointing gestures spontaneously. Dogs track human eye gaze. Dogs make eye contact with humans in a way that is functionally and neurologically distinct from how wolves make eye contact. And that eye contact triggers the same oxytocin loop we talked about earlier. But here's the detail that I find almost too good to be true. Dogs have developed a facial muscle, a specific muscle called the levator anguli oculi medialis, that is either entirely absent or dramatically underdeveloped in wolves. This muscle is responsible for the inner brow raise, the puppy eyes expression, that look a dog gives you, where its eyebrows furrow slightly and its eyes go wide, and something in your chest completely dissolves. Dogs evolved an anatomical structure specifically for producing that expression. It is not accidental, it is the result of thousands of years of selection pressure favoring dogs that were better at triggering positive emotional responses in humans. Dogs that were better at getting humans to touch them, feed them, keep them close. The puppy eyes are not cute by coincidence. They are the result of an incredibly long process of figuring out exactly what makes humans reach out their hands. Dogs did not get domesticated passively. They participated, they co-authored the relationship, and every time you reach out to pet one, you are responding to tens of thousands of years of very deliberate social engineering from the other side. We did not domesticate dogs. We domesticated each other. What's worth sitting with, and I think this is actually the most important part of this whole thing, is what happens to us when we're denied touch. Not just human touch, any touch. Because touch deprivation is a real, measurable, physiological stressor. During periods of enforced social isolation, people who have pets consistently show better mental health outcomes, lower baseline cortisol levels, lower rates of depression and anxiety compared to people who don't have pets. And researchers have been careful to look at whether this is just about companionship in the abstract, having something else in the space, or whether the physical contact itself matters. The evidence increasingly points to the physical contact being a meaningful and specific component. The hand on fur, the animal settled in the lap, the warm weight of a body against your leg, the actual tactile experience of touching something alive. In hospital environments, animal-assisted therapy consistently reduces perceived pain, lowers anxiety before medical procedures, and improves emotional well-being during recovery in measurable ways. Therapy dogs in schools lower stress responses in children during high-pressure situations. And the timeline on all of this is fast. 10 to 15 minutes of interacting with an animal, actually touching it, produces statistically significant changes in cortisol and oxytocin levels. Your nervous system is not slow about this. It knows what it needs and it responds quickly when it gets it. We need this more than we pretend. And maybe that's the real reframe for everything we've talked about today. We treat the impulse to pet animals like it's a funny quirk, an endearing human flaw, the thing that causes you to be 10 minutes late to places because you got ambushed by a dog on the sidewalk. But what it's actually pointing to is something much older and much more serious. Touch is how mammals communicate safety to each other. It is one of the primary mechanisms by which we regulate each other's nervous systems. It is how we express without language something like, I see you, I'm here, you're not alone, everything is okay. For the vast majority of human history, we lived in constant, close physical proximity to animals, working animals, animals we raised, animals that slept near us for warmth and protection and company. The physical and psychological separation between humans and animals that we now consider normal is extremely recent in evolutionary terms, almost cosmically recent. And our brains, our nervous systems, our reward circuitry, none of it is caught up. All of it is still expecting to be near warm, soft, living things on a regular basis. You were never going to not pet the dog. The only question was always how many seconds it would take.